Good afternoon, evening, or morning, wherever you might be. We are covering the bilingual early intervention services available in Illinois. My name is Christy Altamirano.
I am Jessica Lau.
And I'm Luke Murphy.
First off, we're going to cover who is eligible for these services. So, if you are a family that has a child that is under the age of 3 and you reside within the confines of the state of Illinois, you may be eligible for early intervention services that are available in your home language. Um, If you have a child under the age of 3 that has a physical or mental condition that is resulting in a developmental delay, and this has to be approved by the DHS and confirmed by a family physician, or an developmental delay measured by a DHS approved diagnostic assessment, or in the case that your child is unable to complete such an assessment if they are evaluated by a qualified staff member, or if the child is subject to an at-risk factor, such as they might be a subject of abuse or neglect, or there's an informed clinical opinion that there is the possibility for a developmental delay, your child and your family might be eligible for these services. Uh, just as a note, assessments of the child and family must all be conducted in the language normally used by the child, and reports must be provided in the native language of the family. That means that these services are provided in bilingual measures as well as in English. To access these services, you will have to have an initial evaluation of the child to make sure that they are eligible. And once that evaluation has processed, there will be an assessment of the child and family. Once that eligibility is actually confirmed, a service coordinator will conduct the ISFP meeting for you and your family. The service coordinator shall also provide the families with the provider choice to the fullest extent possible. So they're going to provide a list of providers for the necessary services determined to be the best fit for the child and the family. And as a note, here we see under the legislation that if a family does not speak English, the service coordinator shall check for a bilingual service provider and interpreters available at medical diagnostic clinics. If a bilingual service provider is available, the family shall be given the list of bilingual service providers to choose from. If no bilingual service providers or interpreters at the medical diagnostic clinic are available, the service coordinator must explain the situation to the family and share the list of available interpreters. So whatever the case may be, hopefully there will be services available in your home language, but if not, there will be interpreters available so that your child can access these services and not accommodations, but services and uh, providers to the fullest extent possible. As a note, the child and family will be evaluated on a yearly basis to determine continuing eligibility and that have follow-up ISFP meetings. And the family may need to pay a family participation fee, but this is conducted, or this is only for families that are deemed able to pay. In many instances, families that have the household size and a taxable reported income, if they do not fall within the threshold of the sliding scale, they would not be expected to pay um, anything for these services.
Okay, so going into who is qualified to provide these services, this is just an exhaustive list. It's not like the complete list of professional disciplines who is qualified. So we have, for example, licensed clinical social work, developmental therapy, service coordinators, a licensed speech language pathologist, a licensed occupational therapist, and a licensed professional counselors are all examples of who is qualified to provide services, and then we'll go more into details about their credentials. Next slide, please. So, the Illinois State Board of Education requires that a bilingual early intervention service coordinator holds like a professional educator license with an early childhood and bilingual endorsement, along with having specific coursework such as ESL, bilingual foundations, methods, and assessments, along with clinical experiences, and passing a language proficiency test. Right. Next slide, please. Um, More into taking a deeper dive into their background checks. The Illinois state requires that we go through the background check of passing the child abuse and neglect tracking systems through DCFS. Fingerprints will be checked, and you'll be checked based off of the sex offender registries list. You must also have consultative experiences of 18 months from your date of your credential and complete 240 hours of direct services with children from birth to age 3, along with their families as well, and also completing ongoing professional development and having a minimum of 75% hours. Your credentials must also be renewed every 3 years, and so what will be renewed is your background checks, your experiences, and like also your ongoing professional development. Okay. And then the Illinois required EI trainings. So credential is issued through providers' connections, and you must enroll in the Illinois Medicaid Program Advanced Cloud Technology, also known as IMPACT, before receiving your early intervention credentials. So some of the required systems include pause. So some of the required trainings include the system overview, which is before receiving your early intervention credentials. It is two parts, and the first part is an online system overview, and the second part is a 1 day follow-up session. The next required training is a service coordination training, which is 3 parts, and must be completed within 90 days. So it includes a coordination online, which is or a blended training online and webinar, and a 1 day follow-up session. And the next training is a parent liaison training, which is required within 90 days as well after being issued a temporary credential for full status. And then the last training is a system overview for bilingual interpreters slash translators. For this training, early intervention specialists must demonstrate oral and written language proficiency using approved testing measures. A lot of this information and where you can find like trainings can be found at the Early Intervention Training Programs, also known as EITP at the University of Illinois.
All right, thanks so much, Christy and Jessica. Today I'm going to be talking just a little bit about who could benefit from these types of service programs and supports, and just who gets access to it. So, first of all, that a service like this could expose children to at least two languages, their home language and English. We've talked about a lot how multilingualism is a bit of a superpower, and by encouraging your child to speak their home language and English, these children and young students are working on their multilingualism from a very, very young age. One of the things really championed by this program is that children are continue to be encouraged to speak their home language. And by this, you're valuing and celebrating each child's unique culture and their whole self, while also preparing their English skills that they're going to use as they go through the American public school system. For the type of kid that might need this, maybe a kid that has two parents at a home that don't speak English. This would be important if the family decides they want their kid to speak English, and this program could give them exposure to English at school every day. This would also be really a helpful program for kids who have developing or delayed language skills. And it just gives them the additional support to get students the help they need so that they feel confident and assured as they grow into older learners. And like any piece of legislature, there are drawbacks to the service and program. A big part of it is because so many of the kids enrolled in this program have parents that do not speak English, and most of the people working in the system either speak a little bit of two languages, but their first language is English. Their family wishes and family opinions for their kids which is incredibly important. They're not always considered. Also, if a family speaks a home language that doesn't have someone in the school system that speaks that language, it's very hard to involve the family and make them active participants in the learning. In the program, by centering it around your English development, it does send the message that by learning English, you're valuing English on a different level playing field than the home language. And obviously, this can be negated a little bit by some, the language of the teacher and tactful educators. But it is, continuing to make American public schools English centered and seeing English as just on a different level. A lot of the other drawbacks are just logistical, that staffing with the compensation it's at just cannot keep up with the demand for the program. That a recent report from the Illinois Department of Human Services Early Childhood says that English language system is struggling to recruit and retain practitioners who are often severely undercompensated for their field. They estimate that the current salary is about half of what it should be to cover the full cost of delivering early language services. And the lack of competitive wage and other challenges, they're really serving as a barrier to make sure there's enough people to work these jobs. Also, Illinois is a big state, and we often think of it as just Chicago, but it's geographically quite large. And so there are huge parts of the state that just do not have the resources or staff to support children in the way that Cook and Collier counties. And then, like in so many other areas in our education department, that this often leaves Black children undersupported and underrepresented. And compared to specifically white counterparts, Black children receive just a fraction of the support when their representation should be much higher and how much they're receiving.
All
All
right.
right, go ahead, Christy.
These are the references that we used to complete this presentation, and hope you found it useful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you all.